Okay, sync point. I recently got bit by a dog, and I keep forgetting that this thing is recovering. You know, it's funny. When I first took up this extremely stupid task of charting out everyone who's ever hooked up in the Marvel Comics universe, I thought that Tony Stark was going to be at the center of it all. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tony is responsible for a lot of the nonsense on this web, but surprisingly, it's Hawkeye who's at the center of it. What Clint Barton lacks in superpowers, he more than makes up for in failed relationships. So hey, let's jump right into it. And if you want to support this extremely stupid career that I still don't know how to explain to my mom, then consider subscribing. We are so close to 400,000 subscribers that I can almost taste it. Of course though, I also have to give a quick thank you to the company that has consistently decided to keep funding this weird-ass series, Manscaped. Look, I don't need to be the one to tell you that physical hygiene is really important, but what I can say is that plenty of men completely neglect everything going on down there, which is where Manscaped comes in. This holiday season, consider getting yourself or your partner the gift of freshness with the new Performance Package 4.0, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0 cordless and waterproof trimmer with skin-safe technology to prevent cuts. Or what about the Weed Whacker nose and ear trimmer? You also can't forget about their famous Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Spray if you need a quick little fresh up. The Performance Package also comes with 2 free gifts: this extra handy travel bag and a pair of amazing anti-chafing boxers. Completely separate thing, but Manscaped also makes an amazing luxury nail kit that has been fantastic for keeping my nails tidy, because let me tell you, the last thing that my girlfriend wants is Wolverine going to town on her. Go over to manscaped.com/comicd for 20% off, free international shipping, and 2 free gifts. You'll be doing yourself a favor while also helping out the channel. But now, let's get back to it. Alright, so because Hawkeye is a straight shooter that's known for getting around, this video is only going to be counting hookups with notable heroes and villains. That means no civilians and not just kisses like the one that he had with She-Hulk. We good? Good. Let's start at the very beginning. Clint initially created the Hawkeye persona to be a vigilante, and on his first night out, he stopped a jewelry store robbery. But the cops mistakenly thought that he was the criminal. While on the run from the misinformed police, Hawkeye was found by Black Widow, who offered him a ride and convinced him to join her in her ongoing mission to take down Iron Man. With their combined skills, Clint and Natasha made quite the team, but they were never quite able to take Tony down, causing Hawkeye to get fed up and try his hand at heroics once again by joining the Avengers. Natasha, on the other hand, was still brainwashed into working for the Soviets, but Clint was able to snap her out of it with the power of his love, allowing her to defect and devote her life to heroics fully. The romance of Hawkeye and Black Widow was legendary, but also pretty short-lived since Natasha wanted to move away from the dangerous life of being a superhero in favor of becoming a socialite. Clint, meanwhile, loved being an Avenger, and worried that he might give it all up just to be with her, Natasha dumped him. What's wild though is that Natasha got bored of her new lifestyle almost immediately and decided to become Black Widow once again, but she didn't go back to Clint. Naturally, Hawkeye wasn't quite over her, and it's not like Natasha just wanted to be single for a bit, considering that she decided to keep dating post-breakup, like, immediately. One of these new boyfriends was Daredevil, but Clint for some reason thought that he still had a chance and tried to work the moves on her, resulting in him and Daredevil getting into a fight so bad that it needed to be broken up by the Avengers. By the way, I also have one of these hookup videos about Black Widow, so if you want more information, then hey, go check that out. Eventually though, Hawkeye was able to get over Natasha, and after he was kicked off of the Avengers, Barton got a job as the chief of security for a big tech company, and he started dating their head of public relations. Well, one day an ex-SHIELD agent named Bobby Morse, aka Mockingbird, broke into the company to investigate a mind control device that they were working on. And of course, since he was the chief of security, she ran into Hawkeye. It turns out that Clint's girlfriend was never into him and was just hired on to distract him from the illegal project, so he teamed with Mockingbird to take his employer down. Barton was devastated and heartbroken. He lost both the girl and job of his dreams in one night, but the raw attraction between him and Bobby was hard to ignore, so they ended up together. Fun fact, even though Clint lost a lot of his hearing when he was a kid, he lost a whole lot more of it in this storyline when he and Mockingbird were subjected to the mind control device. To protect himself, Hawkeye put a sonic arrowhead in his mouth to block out the noise, and afterwards he was trying to be a big tough guy by hiding the fact that he was now mostly deaf, and by doing so, he completely missed Bobby pouring her heart out to him. Thankfully, Mockingbird didn't let Barton get away that easily, so she chased after him, got the misunderstanding figured out, and they eloped just a week later. This would be the one and only time that Clint ever got married, And for those of you that only know him from the MCU, that might be surprising. Well, that's because his wife, Lara, is actually based on a character from the Ultimate Universe, which is where a lot of the early MCU draws its inspiration from. Almost as soon as Clint and Bobby got together, they moved out to California to form the West Coast Avengers. And things were pretty great for them. That is, until the whole team got stuck back in the Wild West. Just as the Avengers were being transported back to their own time, Mockingbird was kidnapped by a guy called the Phantom Rider, and he forced Bobby to love him against her will by giving her a love potion. When Mockingbird was able to break free from the potion's effects, she was rightfully extremely pissed off and tried to kill the Phantom Rider. But she technically didn't murder him because when they fought, Bobby just let him fall, and when the team came to bring her back to the future, Mockingbird claimed that Phantom Rider had killed himself. Well, about a year later, the Phantom Rider's ghost possessed one of his descendants and told Hawkeye all about Mockingbird letting him die, which seriously pissed him off for some reason. See, Clint wasn't mad at the writer, he was angry at his wife. Even though Mockingbird very clearly explained that she was drugged and raped, that's not what the Phantom Rider had told Clint, prompting him to believe the Phantom Rider over his own wife. Not only that, but Barton yelled at her about how letting him fall was apparently the same as murder. Justifiably outraged by this, Mockingbird left the West Coast Avengers and divorced Hawkeye, although the papers weren't signed for years. But in a really weird and bold choice, the recent Mockingbird solo series retconned it to where the Phantom Rider never used a love potion on her, and Bobby was just cheating on Clint. In my opinion, this decision is gross and does a massive disservice to the character. I actually really enjoyed this Mockingbird series, but erasing Bobby's assault, something that she has canonically had nightmares about, by way of making her a cheater, doesn't empower the character. This is even the issue that had that infamous "Ask Me About My Feminist Agenda" cover. Anyway, Clint and Bobby tried to make things work a few times, but no such luck. Even when they managed to rekindle their relationship, Mockingbird died just a few issues later. Well, she actually didn't though, since she was replaced by a Skrull, which we will be getting back to, because comics. Having started off his costume career as a criminal, Hawkeye saw a lot of potential in a team called the Thunderbolts, a group of former villains that were trying to be heroes. So in an attempt to help them rehabilitate their image with his long career as an Avenger, Clint offers to become their new leader, which they accept. Barton was immediately attracted to one of his teammates, Dr. Karla Sofen, aka Moonstone, and while she was initially trying to exploit Hawkeye's crush on her to exert a degree of control over him, she found herself drawn to his combat skills, dedication, and leadership, so they started dating in earnest. Hawkeye helped point Dr. Sofen's moral compass in a more heroic direction, which led to an internal conflict between her and the entity inside of her Moonstone, the source of her powers. The relationship was made complicated though when it was revealed that Hawkeye's promised governmental pardon for the Thunderbolts in exchange for him leading the team was actually a big fat lie, but he did manage to get them one in exchange for going to jail for the team's unlicensed vigilantism. Though Moonstone was unable to enjoy her newfound civilian life, fell back into crime and ended up dumping Clint when he got out of jail. Leaving Karla and the Thunderbolts behind, Hawkeye returned to the Avengers, and he quickly got involved with his teammate, the Wasp, much to the chagrin of her ex-husband, Ant-Man. This fling only lasted for a few issues because Hawkeye was killed when Scarlet Witch had a big old mental breakdown, and when he came back to life, he had to lay low. Alright, I know this technically breaks my rule about prominent characters only, but this is my video, and this one is too funny not to mention. So Clint has always had a huge crush on Scarlet Witch, and when he came back to life, Barton went looking for Wanda for closure, considering that she was, you know, the one responsible for his death. Well, he found her in a small village, but Wanda had no memories of her life. They ended up sleeping together, but it turns out that she was actually a Doombot replica of her, because comics. After his conjugal sabbatical though, Clint returned to the United States and joined the New Avengers. But since he no longer wanted to be Hawkeye, but still needed to maintain a secret identity, he took up the mantle of Ronin. Now, I go into a lot more detail about this in my video on everybody who has ever been Ronin, but the first person to use his identity was Maya Lopez, aka Echo, who I also have a dedicated video all about. Double plug. Hell yeah. After Clint and the New Avengers saved Maya from evil ninjas, she let him keep the Ronin persona, and the two of them barely interacted after that. I mean, Maya did walk in on Clint in the shower one time, and they talked a little bit after a few fights, but nothing too special. However, this period of Marvel Comics was wrought with paranoia concerning Skrulls secretly hiding amongst humanity, and after Echo fought one off that was trying to replace her, Maya slept with Barton since he was there to comfort her afterwards. This really didn't lead to much though, because at the end of the Secret Invasion storyline, it was revealed that Mockingbird had also been a victim of the good old Skrull swap. They rescued her and she got back with Clint. But they weren't together for too long because Bobby decided to create her very own spy agency, and Barton left her since he was uncomfortable with all the secrets that she needed to maintain as the leader of this thing. Oh, and also because she was willing to kill on the job. This distance helped push Hawkeye, though, towards fellow Avenger Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman. She was also swapped out with the Skrull and wanted to start dating again, now that she was starting to get her life somewhat back in order. So when the Avengers were having a good old drink with the Asgardians, Jessica decided to work her moves on Clint, which included her pheromone power. But that really wasn't necessary because Hawkeye was just totally obsessed with her hair and brought it up multiple times. This was another one of those relationships that didn't go much of anywhere, with the book just cutting to the two of them hooking up every so often. Hawkeye wasn't even all that loyal to her, considering that when he met a woman named Cherry, they banged the same day they met. Well, when Cherry came back for Hawkeye's help against her former lover, she planted a kiss on him right in front of Black Widow, Mockingbird, and Spider-Woman, who were all just kind of hanging out with him at the time at the Avengers Mansion. Obviously, Jessica was pretty upset when she found out that her boyfriend was cheating on her, and she dumped his ass. From there, Hawkeye stayed surprisingly single, but when Captain America's entire life was magically rewritten and he became an agent of Hydra, allowing them to take over America, because comics, Clint became one of the main figures of the Resistance alongside Black Widow. This was trauma bonding to the extreme, and the two of them got back together during this time. But, say it with me, things didn't last too long, as Natasha was killed by Hydra Cap. After the world returned back to normal, Clint got into a relationship with Linda Carter, the night nurse. She is the medical expert for the superhuman community. Things were actually going pretty well between them, but Barton got absolutely obsessed with taking down a bad guy called the Hood, and he used a time travel device which allowed him to be seen as Hawkeye, while simultaneously taking up the Ronin persona once again, so he could mercilessly tear through the Hood's operations, using tactics that are less than heroic. Clint's crusade and literal double life put a massive strain on his relationship with Linda. I mean, Barton was really bad about hiding that something was up, and between the teenage hacker that he hired who he didn't tell Linda was in his apartment while she was undressing, and the life model decoy that Barton used to be in two places at once while his time machine was broken, Carter was confused, frustrated, and completely over his shit. Well, the Hood hired an assassin to take out Ronin, and said hacker boy was severely messed up in the process. Because the kid had a criminal background, Clint couldn't take him to the hospital, so he rushed him over to Linda's place instead. Despite her skills, though, there wasn't much that she could do, leading to the kid's death. And even with all of that, Barton still wouldn't tell Linda what was going on, so yeah, they were through. And on that really downer note, that is all of Hawkeye's notable hookups. Clint Barton is a self-sabotaging character who is constantly putting his foot in his mouth and ruining the good stuff that he has going for him. And that is made explicitly clear by how his relationships outside of Black Widow and Mockingbird are nothing to really write home about. If Hawkeye is going to become a better partner, then he'll need to get his life together. But I personally love the chaotic mess of a guy that he is, so I hope that doesn't change anytime soon. But if you like this video, then why not consider subscribing, or even watching another one? And if these absurd deep dives into superhero love lives is interesting to you, good news, it's an entire show on this channel. So if you want to see more, I have a playlist with every single episode. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.